What was the problem you were personally seeing in the e-commerce?
I think the problem was that people were not having the view of their business that they wanted.
Can you elaborate on what that stage would be? Is it certain visitor count? Is it certain revenue, GMV level?
Yeah, so for me, I've seen, and we purposely structured the pricing on our app in a way.
Let's come to the overcrowding of the Shopify app store. Just wanted to double down on the origin stories.
Yeah, I genuinely think it was two things. It was quality of the app and how it actually works. And I think someone's going to watch this and go,
What's that one Shopify app you respect a lot? It can't be your own app. What's that one metric you think merchant over obsess about?
it's all LTV, lifetime value.
And what's that one metric merchants completely ignore?
Ooh, that's a great one.
And if you're starting today in Shopify ecosystem, would you rather bootstrap it or would you go towards the VC funding?
Neither is good, neither is bad. They are different.
What will ecom analytics look like? Hey everyone, welcome to the Shopify App Founders Edition, the SaaS Podcast, Season 1. I'm your host, Yuvraj Kevte, founder at thesaasapp.com, where we curate the top 10 Shopify apps in every category and help merchants, agencies, and founders make smarter decisions about their app stack. On the show, we go deep with the builders shaping the Shopify ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Cyrus, who's co-founder at By the Numbers app, which is an AI-powered analytics app helping Shopify merchants move beyond basic dashboards and into real business intelligence. Analytics is one of the most misunderstood areas in e-commerce. Merchants look at revenue, they look at ROAS, they look at conversion rate, but they often forget to look at profitability, cohort behavior, contribution margins, and lifetime value, often gets ignored. In this episode, we will deep down on some amazing points which not only will help merchants but also fellow Shopify app founders who are building in data-driven categories. So let's get started. Hey Cyrus, thanks a lot for joining us today. I remember we spoke last year in October while we were trying to curate the app, and I was so excited to connect, understand that an app like yours actually exists. Would really love to get things off. But yeah, just for our listeners, can you just give a quick intro so that we can get things started?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Yuvi. I'm happy to be here and chat about By the Numbers and Shopify ecosystem in general. I'm Cyrus. I'm one of the co-founders of By the Numbers app. We are a Shopify analytics platform. I think when people say analytics, it's a really broad term. Some people say, you mean tracking pixels? And we say, no, not tracking pixels. So our platform is very specialized in tracking performance of your business from a data or a transaction perspective in terms of what's happening, what's selling, who's buying it, what's their lifetime value, and really understanding how to use this data to market better, to retain better, and to actually understand what's driving your business. People have these high-level understandings of what's going on. But I think the biggest gap that people aren't seeing today is what can I see when I actually look at the data from a different lens? And a really basic example of that is getting deep into segmentation, which from my experience, not all merchants are using in the deepest way they possibly could.
Got it. Thanks a lot for that quick introduction, Cyrus. I'm sure a lot of founders and merchants will like what you are going to share in this episode. Now, before we go inside and talk about the real juice, I just wanted to understand, before By the Numbers became what it is today, what was the problem you were personally seeing in the e-commerce analytics space?
I think the problem was that people were not having the view of their business that they wanted. And listen, I use Shopify every day. I love the platform, but for me, the way that the analytics were structured wasn't something that resonated well for me. I had a deep background in analytics, in business intelligence, and just how the data is even presented wasn't something that resonated well for me. And, going through that, we thought, hey, we're not alone in this. There are likely other people who have backgrounds in analytics or don't and want to see data presented in a slightly different way. And that was always our approach with the business and the platform.
Got it. Now, from your experience, what do you think is like one of the biggest mistake Shopify merchants often make while they look at the numbers?
Oh, it's super straightforward. It's all segmentation. It's all the lens. So, like, here's a really basic example. I get onto the phone with a lot of merchants who have subscription platforms. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they're using Recharge, they're using Skio, they're using one of the very well developed subscription apps. And what I see very frequently is, and this is like the most basic example. We could go 100 feet deeper on this if we wanted to, but they're not looking at their businesses from a channel perspective. They're not understanding what are the behavioral characteristics of people who subscribe? What are the behavioral characteristics of the people who do not subscribe? How valuable is my subscription program to me as a business? Yes, I see that it has a much higher retention rate. Yes, I see consistent AOVs, but what else does it mean for me as a business? And that's like the most basic thing that I've seen merchants, and these are even very well developed merchants doing, north of $10 million in sales per year. And they're not taking these very, very basic slices or segments of their business and understanding what's going on. The channel segmentation is just one, but really other basic examples. What was the product that brought somebody into your business? What's the product that they purchased last that caused them to churn? These are really, really important KPIs when we're talking about how can we actually build our business and optimize it without just spending more money on marketing. A lot of merchants don't realize that they have such a wealth of business opportunity within their data set, and they don't understand necessarily the value of what's there and how you could actually use it to drive sales. To me, it's like it's a really luxurious place to sit where I get to be on the phone with a merchant and actually show them like very large revenue opportunities sitting in their data alone. Did you know that if you looked at this segment is contributing this to your business? This is what they purchase. This is what brings them back. Can we double down on this one thing? That type of aha moment doesn't happen instantly, but if you go a little bit lower than your basic dashboard and dig a little bit deeper with a tool that allows you to do that, the aha moment really strikes you then and there, and you begin to understand that, wow, I don't need to go spend $10,000 more on my PPC campaigns this month. Really what I need to do is reconfigure some of my approach and how I'm actually reaching out and speaking to some of these customers to drive conversion and retention.
Got it. Now, I'm not an expert. I've never been a numbers guy. Whenever there are analytics coming in, numbers flying in, I kind of trying to shy away from the situation. But doesn't Shopify provide their own analytics? Isn't it enough for merchants? Why they actually need an app like yours?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, Shopify, yes, they do provide an analytics solution. They also provide an email solution. They also provide a bundling solution. I think the common thing that we know and we love about Shopify is that out of the box, there's almost a solution for everything. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that those solutions are what I'll call at the master level, right? So, there's this phrase of master of none. It's all of the tools on Shopify, the platform, are great and they work and they can get you out of the gate. But if you want to go a bit deeper, you tend to need an app for that. If you want to get a little bit detailed, if you want to see data in a way that resonates with your business, you need to get a little bit deeper than that. If you want something that you can actually customize and reach out to brands, I'll give you a very basic example of that. We work with many coffee brands, and believe it or not, we work with several bicycle brands, right? Totally different ends of the spectrum. But
Right.
to think that an out-of-the-box solution would work for a brand that sells a consumable product that gets replenished every, 2 weeks to 30 days, like that is not an analytics setup for a bicycle brand. It's completely opposite. So having a solution that sort of works for everybody at the lowest level, which is what you would get out of the box with Shopify, it makes sense. But once your business has grown a little bit and you're at the point where you're saying like, hey, I need something that works for how my business works. I need to
Right.
be able to create custom RFM segmentation. I need to actually be able to reach my audience on TikTok and be able to integrate that segment that I developed and be able to speak to them, that's when you need to get an app that does that. And I think it's a very common thing with anything that you're doing in Shopify. You can do a lot of things out of the box, but when you want to go that one extra step, you usually need an app for that, and that's where we fit in.
Right. Makes sense. And you right now said that when a business reaches out a particular threshold or a particular stage, can you elaborate on what that stage would be? Is it certain visitor count? Is it certain revenue, GMV level?
Yeah, so for me, I've seen, and we purposely structured the pricing on our app in a way, and we didn't do this historically. So historically, we had, very similar setups as lots of apps did, where, each feature was sort of gated, right? And we thought we'll charge a higher price for the most expensive and complex features. But what we found there was that we were saying like, hey, why don't we remove all of the feature gating and move to pricing that's based on value or size of business, which is a very obvious and well-defined SaaS approach on pricing. But
Right.
what we saw there, and it ties back, I promise you I'll answer your question, it ties back to your question on how big is the retailer who can actually take advantage of these tools? And the answer to that is it can be a tiny retailer. If you're doing $100,000 a year in sales, you're big enough to go a little bit deeper in your analytics. And I say that because you actually have enough data at that point to be able to make some meaningful decisions on pricing, assortment, segmentation, sales channels. Where should I be doubling down? Where should I not be paying attention to? So at that threshold, you can actually, and again, it's give or take whatever, but even at the lowest level of like doing 100K a year in business, you can begin to start to use a tool like By the Numbers to actually make better decisions on your business. And of course that scales. So we essentially changed our mentality and said, whoa, forget feature gating. I want everybody to have the opportunity to do what the biggest brands can do from a data perspective and from an analysis perspective and making good decisions for how to grow my business. So once we did that, we actually saw a larger cohort of, call it smaller GMV merchants. And it's really interesting to see how they're interacting with the tool versus a company who's doing $500 million in sales and how they're interacting with the tool. It becomes this really, really rich environment. But long story short, as long as you're in business and you have a reasonable amount of data that's actually transacting, we can benefit from going deeper in terms of how you're viewing the business.
Got it. I also would love to understand a bit more around a huge hype that keeps on happening around SaaS and also in e-commerce nowadays. Is every e-commerce brand is kind of more focused on revenue celebration rather than profitability. Is it
Yeah.
like a psychological thing? Why do you feel like people are, I mean, there are bigger brands who are doing like 100 million GMV, billions in GMV, but if you actually look at their actual profits, they're pretty
Yeah.
slim.
Yeah. And you're saying, is this a trend that I'm seeing or
Yeah.
what's, yeah.
Why do you think like this actually happens also? Why people are not focusing on profitability and they're just celebrating revenue cultures more?
It honestly depends on where the business is at, who's backed the business, how the business is funded. And like we know it, Shopify is for entrepreneurs, right? So entrepreneurs have different lenses as to what KPIs are important to them. Profitability may be meaningless for a period of time while they're growing scale and trying to prove out their model and prove out their brand. If it's like a CPG style or a consumer packaged goods style consumable product, and we have a lot of these types of merchants who they sell, let's say protein bars as an example. Profitability may not be the key thing on their mind. It may be repeat purchase. It may be points of distribution. It may be sales velocity, and it may be those because of what their business strategy is. And you'd probably say, like, isn't every business trying to be profitable? And I say, yeah, of course they are eventually, but maybe that CPG brand is trying to get an exit and sell themselves to Procter and Gamble, right? We've seen it many, many times. Maybe they're trying to get acquired by the Kellogg company, right? It is a very known play. So yes, profitability, without it, there is no business, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of brands that have a defined strategy of when they're going to be profitable. And that may not be in the exact moment that, is happening right now with their business. It could be a 2-year time horizon as they're investing in getting a bigger working capital. It could be on when they're trying to prove concept of their brand. So there's a million things that would say that profitability is not the number one indicator for me as a business.
Got it. So it's mostly depends on what's their long-term goal versus short-term.
Long-term to medium-term goal. Like a lot of people have investment in their businesses from outside capital, and they're saying, I'm not concerned about profitability this year. I want you to prove to me that this business is scalable, that it's a repeatable business,
Right.
and that you've built a moat versus this other brand that I haven't invested in. We'll get to profitability, or there's a path to profitability. Some of the largest companies that you see in various industries are not the most profitable businesses, but they're proving out business models. Look at people like Spotify.
Right. No, absolutely. That's completely makes sense. Now, let me ask you this. You keep going on calls with all of these merchants. You might have encountered people who know their number very well. You might have encountered people who don't know their number at all and don't have clue as to what to look at.
Yeah.
What typically do you think separates from someone who knows their number well versus someone who doesn't know their number at all?
I would honestly say it is based on a couple of things. One, I would say it's just based on, this is going to sound really, really simplistic. You don't know what you don't know. Okay.
Right.
A lot of builders, a lot of founders have built businesses from nothing and have shot up to 10 million, 15 million, 20 million in sales. And they're running these e-commerce businesses with slim teams. It doesn't take, a team of 30 people to run a business that size. It can be 3 people. So
Right.
it's a function of, they've never been exposed to analytics in a deep way. They've never understood the need to understand repeat purchase rates of specific products. They've never even come across this. They understand segmentation and what it is, but they didn't understand the idea of how segmentation used to personalize marketing increases conversion, right? Sending appropriate campaigns to people. So they just don't know what they don't know. That's one version of it. The other version of it that I've seen is resource constraints, right? Again, I'm 3 people building a $40 million business. I don't have an analytics team. I don't have a data center. I have an app, and I rely on this app to help me build my business. So some people just don't know. They don't have awareness of these tools and processes. Some people don't have the bandwidth for it. I would say there's almost no case where I've met a merchant and they've just said, I'm not interested in this great information on how I can help build my business better. Like, no one's saying that. There's a lack of awareness of how tools work. Like, there's lack of awareness of, what does cohort retention even mean? How does it work? Well, once you get exposed to it once, you're going, oh, wow, we need to start tracking our cohorts and understanding the impact on our
Right.
business. So it's really a lack of understanding and awareness of these things. And then it's also a lack of resources from merchants that I've seen in most cases.
No, absolutely. I think lack of awareness and lack of resources probably are one of the two biggest things
Yeah.
which kind of stops a business from growing and exploring a lot of new tools. Uh, at what stage do you think analytics kind of became from a good to have thing to a must have or a non-negotiable for any brand?
Yeah. I mean, for me, having solid analytics was non-negotiable 25 years ago. If I'm being pretty honest, and I'm saying that because I'm super biased, and I personally began my working career before By the Numbers in analytic styles roles. So to me, it would be very foreign and unusual for a business that's growing and making money not to have this implicit understanding of what's going on in their business. But today, I think even more so with the sort of proliferation of AI tools today, to me, it would be mind blowing, mind numbing to have developed merchants say, we don't look at this information regularly. We don't know about it. We don't use it. We built an AI system within By the Numbers, and it radically changed the behavior that we saw from merchants. So merchants who previously would come onto dashboards and see high level information and would maybe mine a few reports are now having very active conversations with our Copilot AI about their business. And the conversations are not surface this direct data point for me. In some cases, if the merchant is really developed, they are doing that. They're saying, go and create a report for me, calculate these fields, and give me this information back. But there's this other spectrum of user now. And I believe this is the user who never used analytics before and never invested in it. And that's the user who's coming on and saying, help me understand what's going on in my business and tell me areas that I can focus on for growth. And that's a very, very interesting output. Imagine all of your data running through an LLM that can access tons of KPIs and formulate a response to you within an area that has very good context of your business, right?
Right.
If you're not doing that today, I gave you my 25 years ago remark, but if you're not doing that today, it's an even bigger gap given that we have such elegant AI tools that can really move the needle for you.
No, absolutely. I think AI right now is everywhere. Every company is trying to add AI, but I think analytics is one of those core sectors where AI kind of make a lot of sense rather than just adding that AI layer. This is actually going deep, working as a co-pilot,
Yeah.
digging up a lot of facts, numbers, which
Yeah.
are actionable for merchants, and someone who's probably like me who don't know his numbers well or kind of not that much interested in looking into analytics, having a
Yeah.
co-pilot definitely helps. But apart from that, what else the AI also helps merchants do in your app specifically?
Yeah, I think for me, just to go back to your point on that, I would sort of characterize it as I believe that the future of analytics for merchants begins with a question. The old way, as you referenced, is which you just said, I don't like doing it. Imagine the old school way, which is like, I just need to now go and mine a bunch of data and observe things on my own, create interesting questions, and then figure out the solutions to them. No. AI now is at the state where you can tell it to go do that for you. And that's the thing that's very different. So what else can AI do? Essentially on the platform, it can do almost anything in the sense that it can identify opportunities. I think that to me is the biggest differentiator. One of my favorite questions I get is like, well, Shopify's got Sidekick. Isn't that the same thing? And I say, no, it goes back to that original question you asked me, which is like, at what stage do people need to go get an app, right? Shopify Sidekick is awesome. It can tell me how to create a product page. It can do a ton of different things. It can give me some very basic responses on analytics questions. How many products did I sell? What's my top performing brand? But what else AI can do for you now is go much deeper than that. And so we've created our AI a little bit differently. We've created it such that it can access all of the important KPIs that we're calculating on the platform and actually surface insights that are actionable for you versus just sort of regurgitating a KPI. One of the features that we actually built is this idea of exec summary. So we've all worked in different businesses where there's some exec who simply needs a summary of what's going on, right? So we built this feature where we essentially go and scan all of your data for a very finite period of time. We're only looking at a 1 week period. We're ruthlessly focused on what happened last week in my business. And the AI will scan every data point, and every week it'll create you a report. But the report's never the same. It's genuinely going and thinking, given all of the contextual awareness that we've created for it. So we're not just looking at your data. We know, what do you sell? What are the personas of your customers? What are your sales channels? We use all of that information to contextualize a business update for you. The business update seems simplistic, but it gets a lot deeper when you have access to all of this information. And at that point, you're doing some things very different with AI in the sense that you're saving time, you're saving energy, you're bringing a new thought into the mix of how somebody is viewing your business. And that to me is what's very powerful about the AI, not about, yes, I can go and query a basic KPI. Yes, I can tell it to go make me a table and show me my traffic versus my repeat purchase rate versus my sales velocity versus my AOV. Sure, go and build me that table. That saved me 3 hours of work looking at GA4, Shopify, and whatever. That's wonderful. But it's now getting to the point where you can have a much deeper conversation and get to true drivers of the business in a very, very fast and efficient manner. The exec summary capability is one version of that, but having the conversation directly with the LLM that has this contextual awareness is pretty cool stuff.
Wow, that's actually just crazy and literally takes the entire game to the next level. It's as good as having a team of data scientists who are obsessed with analytics, who go deep into your business and, surfaces actionable outcomes where you can actually now go and build your business and get more revenue. I think that's literally amazing. I'm really curious to understand. Do you think eventually AI will be so strong that it'll literally replace the entire dashboard, or maybe it evolve itself into a decision engine altogether?
I think the answer is a resounding yes, because I don't see humans sitting in front of dashboards analyzing KPIs and trends to the extent that we've done historically. But I would say that it's going to happen in lockstep with every other vertical around us that AI touches. So analytics is not going to happen in some sort of isolation versus other areas of people's lives where they use AI, right? So I'm making up a silly example, but when Spotify removes your homepage and just has a page of what do you feel like, it's the same thing that we're talking about on the analytics side, which is we're saying that the systems, the tooling, the tech is so good that you don't even need to get to the level of detail. You can simply have a conversation and get to a resolution. So between that capability, between AI agents, I believe we're getting into a very automated world where you can build a $50 million e-commerce business with a team of 2 or 3 people. Like, I believe that's coming a lot sooner than later.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, let's come to the overcrowding of the Shopify App Store.
Sure.
I've been building SaaS up, I've been curating apps, I've been looking into categories and spoke with over 600, 700 plus app founders in the past 3-4 months. The crazy thing is, every category that I go into, there are 80, 100, 200 plus apps. And same goes with analytics as well. What are your thoughts around differentiation in a very tough category? And again, it's not just a generic app, it's not an upsell app, it's not a subscription app which anyone can build, and differentiation doesn't matter much. But analytics is something that can make or break a business. A wrong analytics can literally sink the ship. Right insights can literally help them crush their revenue goals. What are you thinking in terms of differentiation? How your app is different from the others out in the ecosystem?
Yeah. Listen, the App Store is definitely a very different place than when we started. So, By the Numbers was launched in early 2017, late 2016, and there's been a world of change with Shopify between now and then. That's for sure. I think for me, what I've seen, so somebody who actually downloads and uses apps myself, is that for me that some of the main big differentiators are like, what's the actual quality of the app in terms of how well does it function? How well does it resonate and connect with the merchant? How easy is it to use and get out of the box? Like, for you to get started, do you genuinely need an onboarding session, or is this thing intuitive enough for you to get using on your own? What's the pricing level versus the competition, and what's your support level? Like, that mix of verticals to me is what differentiates apps in the ecosystem. I've used apps on Shopify that have blown my mind in terms of how poor they were. I've been shocked at how long some apps have taken to load. I've been shocked at how buggy some of the apps have been. And I've always been extremely critical of my own app. And, I would work with our developer and say, like, this is taking 4 seconds to load. This is like unacceptable. We need to be able to build it faster and do this. And it's always been in this idea of being hyper vigilant on quality of the app, consistency, and how well it can perform. So I think that's not a space that's talked a lot about within the app ecosystem. There's just this feeling that if you're there, you do meet a quality standard. You do, but there is a huge spectrum of quality on the App Store. And I would say that that's one point that shouldn't be sort of, everyone's talking about price, everyone's talking about positioning, everyone's talking about how good their customer support is. I think that's table stakes. If you don't have that, then you're not even playing, right?
That's the bare minimum.
That's the bare minimum, right? You tell me you've got a great support team. I say, so what? Everyone should have a great support team, right? Good for you. Let's go on to what's next. It's the quality factor I'm seeing on the analytics side and in some other apps that there's a really big spectrum there. And I think that what's happening is some merchants are experimenting and they're seeing who's got it and who doesn't. It's hard to do in a very crowded field, of course, and there's ways to cut through that. But, out of all of the verticals of stuff that you would normally hear, for me, quality is the one that's not talked about very much.
Got it. I know we probably have gone too deep into the conversation to bring this question also, but since you mentioned you guys got into the ecosystem at early 2017 or something, that time the ecosystem was pretty different. Limited apps were there. A lot of competition was not there. Just wanted to double down on the origin stories. Like, how did you guys even got into Shopify? What did you do to build that early trust? Because when you talk about numbers, the credibility and trust is all that matters.
Yeah, I genuinely think it was two things. It was quality of the app and how it actually works. And I think someone's going to watch this and go, what does that mean, quality? Well, quality for me is reliability of how well it performs. How fast does it update? Like, our app will receive updated information and move customers from one segment to another within 8 minutes, Nice. So quality, how fast does it load? These are all factors that I think are critically important and have changed over time. I think probably in 2017, it was cool if you had an app that functioned. And now the standards are completely different. And if you haven't kept up with that and your app doesn't load extremely snappy fast, then that just doesn't work for my workflow as a human being now. I'm now used to ChatGPT spitting out an essay for me in 12 seconds. Like, how can you not create this highly detailed cohort retention table for me in 3 seconds, right? It's an important factor, right? Imagine navigating through a complex analytics landscape and sitting there and having to wait for refreshes or visualizations or exports or syncs. Like, it's just not something that I find is resonating. I would say that factor, and then adding real value to the merchant. A lot of what we do on our onboarding or our demo calls is find an actual opportunity. So we'll spend the time before the call. We will highlight a list of opportunities that we found. We will create custom segments for the merchant before we've even spoken to them about stuff that we're seeing as a business building opportunity. And when I get on the phone with a merchant, I will say, I found you $250K. Like, let's have a conversation. And within our trial period, I will say, use this for free. Try this. I think it could generate $250K for you doing this approach and changing this one thing. And they're very great. And I said, don't subscribe if you don't want after that. But if this one thing works, you've just paid for the app for the rest of your life and you never have to worry about another expense in that regard. And on top of that, we'll work with you to find more opportunities. So, like, having a high quality platform and a very complete platform is one piece. And I don't even call it support for merchants. That's not support. That's me taking a genuine interest in your business. That's me using my skill set and years of being in the analytics space to come to you and say, I spent the time to find something that I think is valuable for you and that you can genuinely use to either, improve your retention, generate higher revenue, or fix some sort of problem you have. And if I show up with that intention and with that level of quality on a call, then more often than not, the merchant has a good experience and connects with us in a positive way.
Got it. No, I think that's really important. I do have one silly question maybe, but whenever I see numbers or whenever I see a lot of data in front of me, I kind of tend to shy. And again, I've said it a lot of times, and I'm sure it happens with a lot of merchants also.
Yeah.
With someone like yours, I mean, a platform like yours, I'm sure there are a lot of analytics numbers, cohorts, and a ton of different analysis. How do you actually prevent analytics overwhelm inside the product itself? I mean, yeah. Give or take, that's the question.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And when I first started talking to merchants, I would overload them. And I knew it. I was like, wow, I'm just trying to communicate everything to you. So I'm going to drown you on this first call with more information than you've ever seen. And very quickly we learned that, that's a terrible approach. It doesn't work well for the merchant. It doesn't sort of showcase what you need. The biggest thing that I've found is we've structured the app in a way that it is simple enough for a merchant who's just getting started to navigate and to use, but it's also complex enough for the $1 billion GMV merchant to use. And that's a very, very fine balance, right? And so like an example of that is you'll see, call it a lower tier GMV merchant using a lot of AI and Copilot sort of conversations like, help me understand this, what's going on here, what's happening with this. And on the total flip side, you'll see the very sophisticated merchant who's likely having an analytics team use the tool. They will ask it to do any number of things like create a detailed report. I want you to calculate these two fields, use my GA4 data, mix it with this data, and actually generate the output there. So part of it's by design in terms of how the merchant interacts with the app, but part of it is also understanding the sophistication level in that certain tools will not be used by lower GMV merchants. Like they're not using cohort retention because their business isn't even big enough to have a good grasp of what's going on. They haven't even created a scenario where people are coming back more than 2 times for purchase from that brand, right?
Right.
So the tools are specifically designed and laid out within the app to be able to appeal to all audiences.
Got it. Have you ever encountered any brand who probably looks very big publicly? Like, I mean, I've been a seller my whole life. We used to get installs, and whenever someone used to install our app, I was like, oh wow, this brand's landed in. And when we actually used to go in conversations, whenever the number used to come, they used to haggle, they used to negotiate, they used to tell like, hey, things are not going well, we just want to do XYZ experiment. Have you also encountered any brand which publicly is a massive one, but financially underneath, when you probably run the pilot, the numbers kind of doesn't add up?
So the audio broke up a little bit, but is the question that have you ever had installs from very large brands that you would think are very sophisticated but don't actually deliver on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. 100% is the answer. Yes. I've seen it many, many, many times. And I've seen it in my old work life in a corporate setting. Here's the deal. You look at a giant company and you think, wow, this thing must be super well run. They must know exactly what's going on. Everybody must be completely aligned and focused because they're such a big brand. But the reality is when you peel back the layers and you go and see any company, it doesn't matter how big they are. It is usually the case where there are competing priorities, large gaps in sophistications, systems that don't necessarily speak to one another. And I think that that's just completely normal in any business. There's degrees to which that stuff happens, but I think it's completely normal. From my side personally, on the by the numbers side, I've absolutely been flabbergasted at some of the brands that we've seen with the GMVs that we've seen and call it the level of attention that they've placed on analytics. And in some cases, it's for very good reason. I'll give you an example. There's an apparel brand that we've essentially worked with. That brand was having astronomical growth, literally astronomical growth. I'm talking about triple digit, like month over month over month. And they were approaching the $1 billion GMV level. It was like, I'd never seen anything like it before. Never seen any data like that. And I was quite surprised because I'd never heard of the brand. And, maybe one of my friends would make fun of me and say, well, that's because you just wear a black t-shirt, Cyrus, and you don't know cool fashion. And I say, that's fair, but I thought I would have heard of a brand doing this. And when you peel back and I actually began speaking with them, they were just growing so quickly that the systems, the processes, the staff weren't keeping up with their growth. So it was like a total normal scenario. It wasn't them saying like, we don't need to know about what's going on in our business. We don't need to know the analytics. It's just them saying, we are going so quick. We're moving so fast as a business that we haven't been able to invest in this. And we're not even at the point of trying to optimize anything because we're just growing so quick. And in that sense, you sit there and you have a conversation with them and you build them a program together of not saying, let me go and find you a revenue opportunity. They're not looking for revenue opportunities. They're not. Right. They have them. It's flowing in for them. What they're looking for is for opportunities to help them manage their business better, which you can absolutely do. And at the same time, have a standard visibility as to what's going on in the business. So at least they can have a very healthy metric to understand what is the trend on our AOV? What is the set trend on our conversion rate? What is the trend on our cohort retention? At the very least, when they're moving that fast, it's not a matter of them being unsophisticated. It's usually a matter of how well they're doing and they're not able to keep up. What we do in that case is we'll set up just the basics to get them going out of the gate in terms of monitoring their key KPIs. And then over time, as they staff up and they add teammates, we'll begin diving deeper into the data with them. But it's never usually a case of we're not interested. It's always usually a case of no company is as good as it looks like from the outside. And when you get deeper inside, they're usually moving too fast to have a true understanding of what they need to sort of keep that momentum going.
Got it. Now, someone who's actually building in a very data-heavy category, what were the hardest lesson you have learned, and what was the biggest challenge when you were building this product?
Yeah, so I'd have to speak. I'm definitely not on the engineering side of the business. Sure. My partner definitely is, but I had felt his pain during some of the GraphQL API migration scenarios, and essentially, and I think it was well talked about in the ecosystem that essentially became a rebuild for a lot of app developers. And for our app in particular, because it uses almost every data point that Shopify offers from an API perspective, you can imagine that we had to go back and rebuild so many different models within the back end to be able to interpret how GraphQL was actually mapping data. Even this idea of like, what is an order? Some basic notions within the data landscape within Shopify changed when that API migration happened, right? So we had to go back, and you reference this on the call. It's like, I can't go back and just change everybody's metrics. So it was a lot of heavy lifting for the business to go back and understand, how can I create continuity for the merchant in their data and continuity in the data that they're used to looking at, while still abiding by these new API, it's not just the API connections, but these new ideas of, in the new world, what is AOV? What is an order? What is a draft? Like, some of these basic concepts change just enough to sort of mess up how things have been modeled in the past. So that
Right.
was by far probably the biggest shift for us from a back end perspective.
Got it. Got it. Now let's move to one of the easiest part of the segment, which is a quick
Sure.
fire round. I will ask you a couple of questions. You probably don't have to think much. You can just let me know your answer. And again, if you want to explain, definitely you can spend some
I'll
time.
try and be concise.
Awesome. Awesome. So, what's that one Shopify app you respect a lot? And it can't be your own app.
It can't be your own app.
Yeah.
I'd say for me, it would be Recharge. And I'll tell you why. I use Recharge as a consumer with different brands that I buy from. I use Recharge as an app that is visible in our app in the sense that I can splice data and use that as a sales channel, which is really important to me. And just something that I get consistently very strong feedback from the merchants who use it. So I know it's one of the big guys. I get it. I know it's, one of the biggest out there, but that's been the app that's been very, very consistent for me. We're able to pick up its data very well by the numbers. We're able to segment it well. We're able to go and find customers who haven't subscribed to a brand and use them to convert them to become Recharge subscribers. So I've just had a very good interaction with that. And I think I said I would be concise, didn't I? Let's keep going.
Shout out to Recharge.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what's that one metric you think merchant over obsess about?
Obsesses about?
Yeah.
LTV. It's all LTV, lifetime value. It is the one metric that everybody's obsessed about. And we're obsessed about it too, and we bake it in across the platform. It's very important.
Okay.
And different people model it differently. That's important to know.
Got it. And then what's that one metric merchants completely ignore?
Ooh, that's a great one. Completely ignore. I mean, I would. It's not a metric, but it's a frame. I would say cohort retention. I would say people see it, they don't understand it, it looks intimidating, and they leave it alone and walk away and say, I don't need to look at this. And I say, yeah, you definitely need to look at it. It's important. So it would be around their retention metrics.
Got it. And if you're starting today in Shopify ecosystem, would you rather bootstrap it or would you go towards the VC funding round?
Neither is good, neither is bad. They are different. Our business is 100% bootstrapped, and as anybody who's bootstrapped a business, they know that there's a ton of pain in that. I've also in other businesses worked with VCs. There's a lot of pain with that too. So you just have to choose the flavor of pain that you want to experience, embrace it, work with it, and build your business. There's no better or worse. I'm happy to be bootstrapping this business, and I would continue to do so.
That's a very colorful answer.
Thank you.
Awesome. Now, in 3 years, and this is the last question, okay? In 3 years, what will ecom analytics look like?
I was kind of trying to come up with maybe a sci-fi reference here of a neural link plugged into your brain. It's a great question. I think what it's going to be is very action oriented and very direct in the sense that a merchant will have a conversation or state their business strategy to create contextual awareness, and the platform, the app, the agent, whatever you want to call it, will on a very regular basis be serving up something that's different than me spitting out analytics. It'll be more of a relationship between the person who's interfacing it and with the data itself. So I think it's going to get to very, very conversational, but with visualizations that are very, very, very tuned to people's specific businesses. I've seen people today vibe coding dashboards, and they're doing it not because they want to save money, but because they want a very, very, very distinct view for their business. I think we're actually going to a point where we're going to see more and more tailored solutions for businesses based exactly on how that merchant wants to see things, versus call it this one size fits all approach. we're seeing more so today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Cyrus, this was a thoughtful and a very layered conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
we,
me
we
too.
all
Thank
know
you.
that. Thanks. We all know that analytics is not just about dashboard. It's more about discipline. It's about understanding the health of your business beyond surface growth, right? And before we wrap things up, any last 2 cents you would like to say to our audience, merchants, app founders who are listening to this episode?
Keep building and keep trying. That's my motto. Is like just keep going for it. I think the thing that separates the people who are doing well and those who aren't are just get up every day and try. Just try and move it forward today, and you will. It's a long run. Maybe that's really long-winded advice, but the people who I've seen be most successful are the people who genuinely get up every day and just try and push it forward.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Cyrus. That's a wrap for today. If you're a merchant who's serious about understanding profitability, understanding retention, cohorts, performance beyond vanity metrics, check out By the Numbers app on the Shopify App Store or visit bythenumbersapp.com, the website. I will have all the details about Cyrus, how to connect with them, the link to the App Store and everything in the show notes. And if you're a Shopify app founder and if you want to be featured on the Shopify App Founders Edition podcast, do reach out to us. And also, if you run a Shopify app, if you want us to get it curated in the top 10 list, do email me. I'll also drop in my details at the end. Again, this is Yuvraj, and this was another episode of the SaaS Founder Edition series podcast. This is me signing off. Bye.